Yeah, there's no value in unit tests, so I totally agree. In fact, it's probably 10%.
Boy, I really missed out.
Is that proprietary? You're allowed to talk about that?
I mean, I probably not.
First attempt, it failed hard.
I like having my notes in multiple apps and I can't remember where they are. All right, we are live. This is episode 6 of the Dev Syncs. Just one Dev Sync, not multiple. 6 episodes though, pretty good. Not bad.
Yep.
Last week was just Will and I talking about hackathons and side projects. We covered it very extensively. Eric will probably give you a chance to maybe catch up on that at the end of the conversation if you want. See what I think I covered that you have hackathon t-shirts, so I figured like you are a fan, so I'll let you get your piece on that. And then for this one, I'll open it up to you guys first. It didn't sound like you had any hot takes, but any hot takes to start us off? I've got one if you guys don't.
You can start then, I'll think.
Okay. Eric, anything?
No, go ahead.
All right. So I saw a fun one this week, and let me share my screen. There we go. Okay. Price's Law. 50% of the work is done by the square root of the number of employees. So if you have 10 employees, 3 do 50% of the work. 100 employees, 10 do 50% of the work. If you have 10,000 employees, 100 of them do 50% of the work. So I had a feeling you guys would probably have some opinions on that. So let's jump into that one a little bit. What do you guys think?
Is this, I'm assuming we're keeping this on topic to tech, right? This is the tech
Yeah,
workforce.
let's go. We are tech. So yeah, at least from tech experience, it's probably the easiest to talk about.
I don't know if it's that dramatic, but I agree with what the messaging is that, like, I don't know if only 3 do 50 and then 10 out of 100, like 3 out of 50 or 3 out of 10, I could see. In fact, I've probably been in 10-person size teams and only 3 people are doing probably more than 50%. But only 10 out of 100, that seems pretty low. I don't know. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think it falls off for me when it gets to the dramatic numbers. But in the lower side, I think it totally fits. I think it holds up.
Agreed. It's easier to comprehend, I think, in the smaller team too. Because I just think, like, in a 10-person team, you take your absolute top performers, and then I think it kind of depends on what you're considering, like, the work, right? Story work, is it like all the work? It's like you take your super top performers. They're the ones going to the meetings. They're the ones doing the designs. They're the ones basically arguing all of it out, meetings, like basically all the stuff that you might not see on paper. So yeah, I think I'm on board with that. In the smaller group, it is hard to think of 10 people out of 50%.
Yeah, especially even the last one, 100 out of 10,000. 10,000 is a big company. And only 100? I don't know. I mean, I get what it's saying. I agree on the concept. But that is, I think, a little too dramatic. I think maybe not square root, but some other math formula. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Even that curve out a little bit, and I'm on board.
Yeah.
But if you're just taking the general gist of it, yes, there is the overwhelming majority of the work is generally done by, disproportionately by the highest.
Maybe a better formula is just the classic 80-20 rule, where you can almost flip it on its head, where it's like 20% do 80%. I don't know. Like, I don't know if that's more or less dramatic, but like maybe 20%. Yeah, it like does 80 and then kind of like that type of a deal.
Yeah.
Something in that nature.
It is interesting. I was just doing this exercise the other day about delegation and the balance of delegation, and it's I don't know, it's just very topical because the exercise we were doing, you have this simulation. You do have like the high performers, and they can take on a ton of the work. They're the ones that you would trust to do the most important work, but at the same time, you can't push everything.
You froze on us on that last part. You kind of stuttered a little bit.
Might be having some audio issues. I don't know. Will, does Eric sound okay for you?
He seems to be like a tremolo effect. He comes in and out sometimes.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of static, I guess, Eric.
New microphone.
Okay.
Gotta adjust the gain.
Or not cooperating with the KVM.
How's that?
Sounds about the same to me.
So yeah, it's still pretty heavy on the static. I don't know if you want to rejoin.
We'll try.
How's this?
Oh, there we go.
That's better.
Cool.
Much better.
Much better. Yep, much clearer.
Awesome.
All right.
Hooray, settings.
That's all right. Where would it be without technical difficulties? So no worries.
Yeah.
Just
Nothing that
adding
can't be,
realism to the chat, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, that's nothing that a little bit of editing magic can't take care of. So no
Fair.
worries.
Don't even edit it out though, man. Like, leave it in there. This is life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was kind of going for the vibe of just, we recorded a regular meeting. So, these
Yeah,
things
seriously.
happen.
What is a dev sync if you're not sitting there going, wait, say that?
Yeah.
Is it me, guys? Is it me?
Yeah.
You're on mute.
Wow.
Yep, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Oh man, good stuff.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you caught the gist of what I was getting at, but basically,
Yes.
just yeah. There's a balancing act of delegation, and it does favor the highest performers. So
I mean, and then that's the thing is like, I wonder how skewed, even if that was real data, I wonder how skewed that data would be based on the fact that high performers get given most of the work. Like, it's not because they're doing most of the work out of, I don't know, like accident. It's not by accident. It's by design. They're given most of the work because they're a high performer. You're not going to give, 2 times more work to a low performing engineer. So it's almost like it's built that way on purpose. So if you look at that type of cherry picked stat, if you really did gather like how much work only 10% of the company does, and it does achieve 50%, you're like, wow, like this seems really bad. Well, I mean, that is kind of bad, but you're the one giving it to them. So it's your own fault, really. Like you designed a system where that 10% ends up doing 50 because they're the ones who got the projects, So
I think if you flip that number around a little bit, where it would be like, if you said 80% of the work is done by 50% of the people or something like that, that I would start getting behind, right?
Okay.
Where you just have like this, like if you bell curve the thing, where it's just like the majority of the work is done by the sort of middle of the pack and above performers. That one I'd start believing. I'm sure there's some statistic out there we could probably scrape up.
I mean, there's a lot of Scrum walls and what is like, Jira and all these other Kanban and everything. Like, that's what those are for, right? Is tracking exactly how much work is being done by each person. So I'm sure a lot of internal teams are having those exact metrics spun up every 2 weeks, and they, they look at them every 2 weeks and see who's doing enough work, who's not doing their work, what team is green, what team is red, So.
And then somebody's sitting there going, why did so-and-so only do 8 points of work? Everybody's doing on average 11.
Yeah.
Just to bring this back up,
the
top of that was saying, here's an example of Dev 1 doing 45 PRs a month, Dev 2 doing 1 PR a month. I did code reviews.
Goodness.
Dev 1 had higher code quality too. I mean,
That's...
yeah, in some scenarios, sure, I'm sure that happens, but yeah, I don't know. It seems like an extreme example. But
that one seems almost, hey, this thing happened at work today, and I'm going to post about it.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's such a benefit of a doubt argument, or just it's a very cherry picked stat, because it's like, what if that one PR was done by a director who doesn't have time to code? So
well, I was just gonna say, like, and I know you guys have heard me talk about this too, where it's like, boy, if we ever got to a point where we were doing merit based on PRs,
yeah,
it's been nice knowing you guys.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I don't get to do PRs.
Yeah, there's like principal architects or team leads or just higher end engineers who are not creating PRs. And then you have usually the entry level people right out of college who are gun ho, like balls to the wall. They're going to be the ones doing 45 PRs because they're like so anxious and excited to make a name for themselves, to like prove themselves, to learn, to do things. And then again, because they're doing all of that work, the team is happily going to give them more. Be like, sure, take some off my plate. I don't care, and then they hit the 45 PR mark, and other people are now slowly trending down. And it's the nature of the thing. Yeah. It's a balance, so.
Yeah. There's never what's the old adage? Like, there's never a drought of work or something like that, where it's like there's always something to do, and there will be work accommodating whatever you will allow. If you say you have bandwidth, here comes a task.
Yep.
So
yeah, I forget. There's a term for it. I can't remember where the work, or like a rule or something, that the work will always expand to fill the time. So whatever time's been allocated to it, that's how much time it's going to take to do that work. So
yeah,
that's kind of how my whole life has been. Like, it's kind of sad, but I have a hard time getting over that hump where if a task takes 2 hours, but you give me a week to do it, I'm going to take a week to do it. Because I don't know. It really does fill that time. You're like, okay, I'll spend a couple days looking at it. That's enough. Now I'll take a day drafting it. Okay. Next day writing it. Third, fourth day testing it. PR on the fifth day. Or I could have done all of that in 2 hours. So, it's just
you have the whole sprint. Why waste it?
Yeah.
You can take it easy at the beginning of the 2-week sprint. So plenty of time.
Yeah. Just taking notes for the next peer review. Will does not manage time effectively. No, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. It is funny though, right? Like everybody gets together and they say everybody agrees this task takes a week. It's pretty hard to just turn around and knock it out in a day.
Well, that's the thing is like some tasks, and that's going back to the balance act, is that it's impossible to truly time a task. It's always an estimate. So you may look at it and you go, okay, this will probably take a week. And then it turns out it only takes a day. Okay, you got lucky because the next time it may only take a day on estimate, but then it takes you a week in reality. So you're not always going to win this happy battle of time, right? It's always going to be pure guesswork, and you either get lucky sometimes or unlucky other times. So
yep. And that grooming session usually starts out with, well, I'm pretty sure we can.
Yeah.
XXX. Come to find out, nope, that's not a thing. We are actually going to have to invent something. That 1 day story now took a sprint.
Oh yeah. And then plus unexpected work always comes in. So it's nice. It's nice if you have a week-long story that was allocated to take up your calendar, schedule, or whatever, but it only takes a day because then you have more free time to focus on the unexpected work that comes in. And there's always unexpected work. So now you're not burnt out. You're not working crazy hours because all of that free time has now been just shifted over to unexpected work and you're going home at a normal time. So it's not like you're not working, right? Like you said, there's no drought of work. It's just a balancing act.
Nope. I would love to see that. That would almost be terrifying to see a drought of work where it's just like, guys, what do we have coming up? Nothing. wouldn't know what to do.
Right. Yeah, I've only been in that situation once or twice where it's a little weird where it's like, well, we're not sure about the future of this project. You just, go ahead and keep working on it like it's going to keep being a thing, but we're pretty sure it's not going to be a thing anymore. So, just pretend like you still have something to do. So that's also a little bit scary.
Yeah.
True. That's true. I guess maybe one benefit of big tech or enterprise then is generally if that's happening, there's at least something on the backlog somewhere that is going to come in and replace that thing if that, if it does get mothballed.
Unless you're at Tesla, where the completely side channel. Did you guys see/hear that they fired the entire supercharger team? Just gone. The whole 500, I think it was 500 employees that were in charge of the supercharger network when it came to maintenance, when it came to installation, when it came to expansion, when it came to development. The whole team gone, including like the director of the team, who is the person responsible for creating the relationships between other EV companies to allow them to service and like use the supercharger network. Like, partnering with Chevy to be like, yeah, you can use our network given that you pay us X amount of money, right? Like even that director who was in charge of those negotiations, gone. So it's like the whole team, boom. So yeah.
Well, luckily we don't need the chargers, so we're all good.
There you go. Well, I was gonna say what my experience with that was I was actually at a smaller company So that's probably, I was going to say, usually it wouldn't have as much cushion as a bigger company probably would, but I suppose this is a good example of a larger company actually just deciding, yeah, that project's gone. We're not going to transition people to anything else. We'll just fire everybody instead.
Well, that's the thing is like they're not getting rid of superchargers. The whole
Yeah.
excuse that was given, and I say Elon gave the excuse only because he's the one tweeting, right? Who knows really what goes on in those meeting rooms? But anyways, coming off of his Twitter, he said that they're working on like less expansion, more internal maintenance and uptime, and their uptime I think is the best in the world. Like no other charging network like comes close. So I don't know. Maybe because all these other like car companies who are partnered / going to use the supercharger network, maybe because they're getting bigger and bigger and there's more and more, maybe because that's going to put a bigger load on the supercharger network that could impose a risk that the uptime will go down versus only Teslas, right? So I don't know. Who knows?
Interesting.
Yeah, but that was the reason, is that like they need to focus on what they have now, making sure that it all works, it has good uptime now, and less on expansion. And expansion is going to happen later. I mean,
Got it.
That basically seals the deal that I'm never going to buy one because there's not a lot of superchargers around me. And if they installed like 5 just a little bit around me, like on my route, then yeah, I would totally get one. But because they've stopped installing new ones, then until they start that up again, I'm not going to buy one unless I move, right? So I can lose a lot of customers that way.
Well, yeah, that's for sure. So that's interesting. I guess my area just made the cut because I just noticed a new supercharger installation at one of the gas stations I was at the other night. It was not there before, so it's like brand new. But I guess not anymore. I guess they aren't going to be doing any more of those anytime soon.
No. And then some of them broke ground. Like they dug, they were getting ready, and they were fired. So they left, and now there's just an open construction site for God knows how long. You know how long those things last. Oh my God, especially in like out here in the Midwest. An open construction site could be there for a year before it gets covered up. It'll just sit there and rot. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I mean, just having driven back from Florida back to Indy, what an adventure in a Tesla. But it was cool. I mean, I could basically pick and choose where I wanted to stop and charge.
Yeah.
So as expected, I planned all of my charging stops based on could I make it to a Buc-ee's or not.
Good call.
Well, yeah, I mean, like,
does Buc-ee's have Tesla superchargers or just electric chargers?
Oh, no, just everything was supercharger. So, like, nice. I was never without being within 20 miles of a supercharger anywhere I was. Even the hotel I was staying at, which is right by the airport, the supercharger was over at the Wawa, which another gas station. That boy, what an experience that is.
Yeah, Wawa is getting popular. I hear a lot about it.
It was amazing. Like these guys were they kept talking about Wawa, and like during the day, and when trading off flights and stuff, they would somebody would go to Wawa to get food or whatever. And I just I hadn't gone into one yet. I was just using it for the charger, and then finally my last day, I was like, I really got to go see what this is all about. And boy, I really missed out.
Nice. Yeah, I hear good things. I hear definitely good things.
I feel like maybe I've heard of it, but yeah, I have no familiarity with it. So interesting.
Yeah, it's like call it like a Buc-ee's light, right? Where it's not the entire experience of like a rest area and tourist resort that a Buc-ee's is,
right?
But more than just go in and grab a Twix and a Mountain Dew. Also,
nice. Yeah,
it was cool. But no, point was, I mean, the whole way, depending on it didn't matter which direction I wanted to go. Like there was a supercharger within range, and it was basically just planning out the best one to get. So I mean, unless we're talking about bringing more of them to rural areas, then I think as far as highways go, it's pretty well covered.
Yeah, I think I don't know if you want to quickly Google a map, or at least I can. They have a pretty good coverage for sure, but
yeah, I was gonna say, I'm guessing that was probably part of the calculation, was that like, there's probably enough that on average there's not too crazy of a distance, so they're probably like, we're good for now.
Distance and weight, I think too, it needs to come into it, because that was the bigger thing. Was you're talking about like I-75 in Florida. It's super busy from a travel perspective. At least this one specific supercharger that was by Artel, I mean, it was always packed. I think only one time was I there that it wasn't like completely full.
Can you guys see my screen?
Oh,
Negative.
let me bring it up. There we go.
All right. So here is the supercharger network. So it is a lot, right? It's pretty good. You are correct. So I can see why now that all these other car companies are taking on this network and they're getting adapters to fit their plug so that way it works with the supercharger plug. All that is kind of a risk on uptime because now it's not just Tesla's using these, it's all of American car and overseas car manufacturers are now going to be using this network. But it does seem kind of dramatic, but it's also Elon dramatic, so it's expected of just all 500 people, including upper management, like the directors who were responsible for even developing those relationships to get this network like so fleshed out, the government and other car companies. I don't know, a little extreme.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured though, because when you were just talking about how I don't know some of these sites had just started or just broke ground and just going to be left, but I'm kind of wondering. It sounds like more and more competition for electric vehicles is coming into the market, so I'm sure one of them would happily come along and pick up where it was left off, so probably won't sit dormant for too long, I would imagine.
I don't know,
but yes,
it was interesting.
Execution though is it's another thing. I mean, I guess bit of a snap judgment there as far as like or a quick call just got the whole thing.
And tie this all the way back.
Please do.
This goes off that like even enterprise or bigger companies, you could be working on a project and then one day project doesn't exist, which is scary to not have work. Hope that never happens. Anyone, I don't know, are in this room and people we know.
For sure. Yeah. Mass layoffs and all that. It's not fun.
Yeah.
No,
hope it doesn't happen to any of our listeners.
Never again. That was just thinking back a couple years. That was pretty brutal.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Another topic. What do you got first?
Now it's super down.
Yeah.
All right.
What else we got?
You don't want to dive into layoffs? All right. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll bring it back to the work. Just because I had some other numbers, I guess, to go the other way. So I think Will, you even touched on as far as I don't know. I keep hearing the stat that what is it? 20% of the actual work is 80% of the actual result, something like that. Where you spend a lot of time doing stuff that doesn't really matter. Where it's like 20% is the thing that actually makes the biggest difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just inevitable. And plus, I guess it all comes down to how you define value, right? Like who you as a person, and this is not to get into like core ethics or anything crazy like religion or politics, but just on the very surface level as an engineer or as a developer, like those types of values. Like if you see unit tests as valuable, then maybe that goes up like 40% as valuable instead of just 20, because that extra 20 is you spending time writing unit tests because you see value in those. But there's a lot of developers who don't see value in that. So they would totally agree with the 20% going, yeah, there's no value in unit tests. So I totally agree. In fact, it's probably 10% because I spend way too much time on unit tests and I have no value in it. Right. So it all kind of comes down to like where you as a developer or as an engineer see the value. And it's not necessarily a strict 80-20, but I'd say around that. It's probably true.
So the Pareto principle is what it's called, the 80-20 rule. So, yeah,
so
right.
The seasoning for a McDonald's hamburger. Just throwing that out there.
There you go. Is that it?
It is 80-20.
Ah,
nice.
Didn't know that.
It's a good ratio.
Is that proprietary? Are you allowed to talk about that?
I mean, I probably not. Keep an eye over my shoulder.
Yeah.
No.
McDonald's sponsorship canceled. That's okay.
Dude,
the 80-20 rule is like, I mean, it works for so many things because it's a nice balance, but it highlights the, like not everything is going to be, not everything goes on the billboard, right? Not everything gets the enterprise announcement. Actually, so much really doesn't. Like talking about unit tests, like why to this day we can't get people to build more unit tests is beyond me. But
especially when you could just ask for them to be generated.
I know that's
I did that today,
Just
Nice.
GPT.
and I have
stuff.
I had a mixed experience today about that. Now, granted,
Okay.
it was a complicated unit test because I was telling it to write a unit test for a cache middleware that uses a mock Redis instance to store and verify that a unique key of the request using query parameters in the path gets hashed, stored with the response body as the value in the mock cache.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. And it was a mixed experience. So I gave it the two functions. I gave it the cache middleware, and I gave it the generate unique key function, because that's
Okay.
a specific function that, like I said, parses out that stuff and hashes it. And then I gave it a sample, like kind of like a boilerplate of how I like to write unit tests. And then I said, do it. And it came out with a pretty good first attempt. It failed hard. It gave me two like examples. One was hitting the cache, and then one was skipping it one was storing into the cache, and then the other one was just retrieving it and not hitting the actual API handler because it didn't need to, right?
Okay.
So it gave me those two instances, and they always failed. So I had to handhold it a little bit, but it wasn't bad. It was a good starter place. It saved me a lot of time with like starting, but it didn't work. So I don't know.
Bummer.
No,
Was this Copilot or GPT?
GPT-4.
Yeah, I think I've seen some. Yeah, I give it mixed results as well. You got to really. What I've seen is if you've already started your test class, it really does a bad job. But it did a really good job if I didn't have anything. If I just told it, here's a class, write tests for this, it actually didn't do bad.
Okay.
So it was kind of like less is more in that instance, and that was pretty consistent across the entire test suite. I mean, I think I think it was 6 classes of varying complexity. You know, just like some things that were just simple little concrete implementations, and things that were like larger kind of factory pattern type, abstractions.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like if I didn't start anything ahead of time, like if I didn't tell it, hey, add a test for this, and instead just said, here's a class, generate a test suite, it did a lot better.
It'd be cool if the next evolution, or maybe this is just prompting, right? Maybe my prompting needs to get better, but it'd be cool if the next evolution of that type of response from the AI would recognize that it's not that like your code can't be unit tested. Maybe that's like better way to say it. It's almost like you can take code that has so many dependencies, like it's connecting to a database and a cache, and it's connecting to an S3 bucket. And it's like, dude, I can't write a unit test for that. I need mocks for all these things. I need to like localize all these environments, and you are giving me no structure on this function. Like this is impossible to unit test, right? I would like that. I would like a fight almost to be like, okay, versus it just assuming that those connections are always going to be live and you're going to be able to run them on some, hypothetical integrated environment that will always be open. Like, nah, like a true unit test, right, should lock it down. And it'd be nice if the AI could respond with, well, we're going to refactor your entire function with some mocks, and then we're going to unit test it. And here you go. Maybe it can. Maybe I'm not prompting it correctly. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, well, and I guess kind of back to what Eric was talking about with like building out a suite. I know right now it seems like a lot of times if you do step by step, it also seems to do a little bit better. Like it can get kind of lost in its own context if you have it do a bunch of stuff at once. Which might kind of shoot down that idea for you, Will, for now, where it probably needs it needs the like step by step. It's not going to be able to look at everything and be like, oh yeah, we need to redo this, or like, oh yeah, like I can't work on this yet. So yeah.
I'd be curious if I did try and prompt it with like, assume everything runs off mocks, disconnected from the internet, has to have a localized environment with zero dependency work. Like, interface. Like, I wonder if I prompt it something like that, maybe it would get closer to what I'm expecting even today without an advanced version.
I bet it does. If you like just systematically feed it context of, for my database connection, here is the concrete implementation, but here's the interface that it's based on. And you're basically setting up the stage that you are dependency injecting all of these things into every service. I bet you end up getting a lot better result. But yeah, I agree. I think it probably does just come down to, well, as with all of this, right? Just the right prompt engineering.
Right.
Yep.
Because there's the true dream, right? Like you think about, you have an entire system in production, and you say, let's let's say for instance, it's like I want to add a new file storage service to my solution. What's the best way? Or let's do that, right? I want to add file storage, and can it take the entire context of the entire system, understand that it's based on AWS and it has these network constraints and these contractual obligations, so we can't just use whatever storage mechanism and then generate an entire module.
Right.
Basically just acting as an architect.
Yeah.
Those more advanced modalities of the solution generation, like.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I actually just this week, I think Sam Altman had another. I don't know, like I think somebody asked about GPT, whether it's going to be GPT-5 or whatever, 4.5, whatever. But he basically was touching on that. He's like, basically the GPT-4 that you're using now, he's like, it's like embarrassing. It'll just be, the newer versions will just be so much better. But he said basically like that's what they're like really shooting towards, is just the agency of just, hey, can you go do this thing? And then if you get stuck, let me know. But otherwise, yeah, exactly. It could just go crawl the project and you give it kind of a direction of like, this is what I want you to work on. It'll go look up what it needs to look up and just try to do it. And then if it's like, hey, I can't figure this out, or hey, like I don't understand this part, it'll come back to you. But otherwise you can just kind of like let it go do its thing, and then it'll come back. And like it actually will just be like generally smarter, I guess, is what he's like the best way that he could explain it right now. So maybe maybe it'll eventually get there.
That's cool. Wild.
Yeah.
It's really going to make those of us that tout, please document your stuff and please do it in a way that makes sense. It's going to make us look just like geniuses.
Called it so long ago. Look at how smart we were.
Yep. And I knew this was coming. This is exactly why I thought that. This is why I was on you guys so hard about it.
Exactly. That's awesome. I think we're going to cut this one a little bit shorter this time, but might throw it back to Eric. And we had our chat about hackathons. Did you have any burning input on hackathons and hackathon activity?
Other than everybody should do them as much as you possibly can, even if it's not like an official event, or just do like personal hackathons sometimes, just find a task and burn through it. No, I love hackathons. Doesn't matter if we're talking like internal team events, or I don't know if you guys were getting into more of the more official ones.
No, I mean, exactly what you said. I was touching on both in the sense that I've participated in like quote unquote official ones, as well as ones with like big money prizes and a whole tiered list of, you can enter in this, right? There's so many categories and they all have different rules, as well as, like you said, I think is the best form, which is kind of the opposite end of that, where it's just a hackathon of people in a room doing something that you want to invest time in, learn about, try, and it's just pushing towards a common goal, or at least something at the end of the weekend where you feel like, all right, that was good. It doesn't have to be for a company or a prize pool, just to do something.
Yeah, cool way to learn new technology. Some task that you wanted to automate, or just some. Heck, even if it's just following along some tutorial on GitHub about how to introduce home automation into your house. That always seems to be an intro level task a lot of people do, where it's just like, do you have a Raspberry Pi and a bunch of time on your hands?
Yeah.
Clone this repo and let's just see what happens.
Right. And a bunch of old cell phones or something.
And a bunch of old cell phones, yeah.
Yeah.
You have a Raspberry Pi and a Windows phone laying around? I do. I have both of those. No, that's cool. I'll have to. I do still need to catch up on that last chat with you guys, so I'll do that and maybe even have a more informed opinion next time. But I would imagine we're probably all on the general same page there, that we're all vehemently against hackathon. No, we're all very pro hackathon.
Yeah, I would even encourage going another step with anyone who's thinking about hackathons, in the sense that you'd be surprised how many hacker space, or like tinker space, or makers, they all have different names. So that's why you have to that's why I'm saying all these, because usually Googling one doesn't always show the other. So like maker space, tinker space, hack space. It's just a building that a community or a group of people have bought and rent out through members and memberships to go in, and they have 3D printers, they have soldering irons, they have CNC machines, they have desks and meeting rooms, and they have this like space where you can just go in as a member and use these tools to build and create and program and essentially do hackathons at. And they usually host events, and they usually have a calendar. So like, I know a lot of these places around, at least around me, have like community day where you don't have to be a member, everyone's allowed in for free, and they'll show you how like to 3D print something, and you just walk away with like a little 3D printed duck, and you go home and you're like, hey, I learned something, right? So like that could be the entry into getting interested on something. And then maybe if you have the funds or the means to, you can get a membership into that thing, and then that's more incentive to hack more often, learn more often, do more often, right? Because now you have this space that gives you access to all these tools, and you don't have to buy a 3D printer, you don't have to buy a lathe, you don't have to buy a press, right? Like you just get to use one. So
yeah, it's true. I was going to say that that definitely is a different aspect that we didn't even really talk about. I guess we were mostly talking about the digital hacking, and now you're talking about 3D printing hacking as well, building real stuff. Eric,
and I think
that's how I got into
it.
It
go back and forth, right? Like you can take a Raspberry Pi, load it up with some firmware that you coded, and then slap that into a 3D printed case, right? Now you have like a little case with your Pi and your code, and then slap that case on something, and then now it's like, I don't know, it could be a sensor, like for something, right? I don't know. But that's the thing. I think it can all, anything can be hacked or tinkered or built or whatever.
I mean, that's how I got into it. I mean, way back in the day, when the whole IoT space came about, and that was everything, right? Everything was IoT. Like
it was
the original Pi came
everything.
out, and Arduinos, and you could buy entire kits of sensors and things. I mean, people would basically just build all of the stuff that, frankly, is all commercial now. But it'd be like, oh, do you want to have a smart fridge that can, you can keep track of your shopping list right on your fridge, on your refrigerator door? Mm-hmm. Well, here you buy this touch screen, everything you buy on Adafruit, right? So you go on and you buy a touch screen LCD, and it has a cable that hooks right into your I2C on your Pi. And then here's a program on how to write, here's how to make it all work together and how to sync it to your cloud and blah, blah. And there's tutorials on tutorials. And that was like the first foray into all of it. I mean, we were doing it just like ourselves. We were doing it we were doing it in the enterprise as well, getting on board with all of that. So watching commercial applications come in for these things. The other nice part is you mentioned going to these spaces and getting involved. The one nice thing too is even if you have zero experience with it, the nice part about most of this space is people really like to show you how smart they are. And
they'll love to teach you.
They'll teach you. Like going to Lowe's on a Saturday, right? When they're like, come learn how to put in tile.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Someone will happily tell you.
There is somebody there that has been looking forward to showing you how to install tile for weeks. But that's cool. And I would imagine, I haven't really looked, but I would imagine there's probably AI, spaces specifically for AI now too, since that's the topic du jour.
Oh, sure.
So
yes, especially on the West Coast, right? I don't know if it gets so much inland out in the Midwest, but on the coasts, oh yeah, when something is big and fancy and new, people will take an old, empty office that used to be a Halloween spirit store and slap up an AI hackerspace, So
sounds about right. Yeah.
No, it turns into a fireworks store, right?
That's what I was thinking.
Halloween spirit, then fireworks, then AI hackathon, then back to
there you go.
Spirit.
In the off season, and then Christmas decorations,
and then Christmas decorations, exactly.
Perfect. All right. Well, run the full spectrum here. I think made it back to hackathons from the questionable amount of work that people are doing. Any other final thoughts? Any other hot takes to close us out?
I said I'll think about one, but I really can't. I guess it's not a hot take, and I think Jay, you already know this because I may have brought it up in a previous podcast, but I don't know if you don't, Eric. Is that speaking of full circle, I've now come full circle, and I think maybe this is a hot take. I think writing down the notes versus typing the notes and having all these different note-taking apps, right? Because your phone usually comes with a pre-stock app, and then you have like Slack technically has notes now, and then there's Google Docs and Discord, and or you just write it down. And I think writing down is now my favorite and the best way to take notes. Just write it into a centralized pad, centralized location, and not use a digital note-taking app.
Makes me so happy to hear. I actually, so funny story about that. I got asked if I was like, apparently I look like a therapist today because we were in a meeting and like I said, I just got back from vacation, right? So I'm literally just sitting there in listen mode trying to figure out what has happened over the last 2 weeks. And so I'm sitting back in the chair. I got my leg crossed and I got my steno pad sitting right there with just a pen. Just writing stuff down.
Nice.
I look like a therapist writing these notes. There is something about writing it down though, like that tactile, just that activity.
Plus, like I know yours is a little bigger, which has its advantages, and of course mine has its advantages, which is that it's so tiny. I can just throw this in a pocket, right? And I like that. But obviously, you can't do a lot of shared work on it. Like if I had to present it or hold it up to someone, they'd be like, "What?" But for me personally, right, I like that it's so tiny. And you're right, like you can just whip it out, write it down. It's all in one place. I like that. I don't have to have, did I write that down in Google Docs, or did I write that down in Slack, or was that a Discord message, or I know what it is, I just can't remember, and now I have to search 5 different apps to find it, or it's right there.
Yep. Yeah. And it's not for them. That's honestly, the way I look at it is if it's truly going to need to be a shared note, we'll make it a shared note.
Yeah.
Right? It goes into Notes or Slack or Google Drive or whatever. But this is my stuff.
That's a good point.
Plus, just going to make sure you remember how to write every now and again, too.
Yeah. Oh, that's the thing is like, this is a pen, but it's an erasable pen. So
yeah,
I'm not that good. Not yet.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't have much in the way of a hot take on this one. I'm recovering from a vacation, if you can believe that.
Right on.
Hot take is that vacations do not make you feel refreshed and ready to go back to work.
Not when 8 out of the 14 days was high intensity classroom training.
Yeah, right.
So it's not really a vacation.
Well, I mean, the classroom training is for flying an airplane, so it's
all right.
Not exactly, I wasn't sad during it. We'll just say, right?
All right. More so just a break from work.
So. More so just a break from work, but a lot. But no, I'll think I'll have a good one for next week. What about you, Jay?
We'll hold you to that. I'm just going to stick with taking notes digitally. I like having my notes in multiple apps, and I can't remember where they are, so I'm going to stick with that. Worked pretty well so far. Yeah. I'll just let AI scan all my stuff.
Is it a Trello task? Is it a Google task? Is it a Google Meet? Yeah. It's only getting worse, dude. It's only getting worse.
If you don't have, I'm looking at it right now, 34 Gmail accounts, you're not doing it right.
Wow.
It's a lot.
God. Do you have them all forwarded to one email account, or you just let it loose?
No. I mean, there's really only 5 or 6 that jump in right now, so I usually can kind of figure out where they are. But yeah, sometimes it's like a couple different Notion
34
on a couple different Gmails, so it gets a little nuts.
Oh my god,
so,
so that's even worse. Is now it's not just okay, is it in Notion, or is it an email, or is it a Discord message? Now is it Notion A account, Notion B account, Notion C account, Notion
Luckily, there's one Notion, and then I had started a second one, but there's not much in it, so it's like, if it's not in there, then it's in the other one. So it's not too bad yet. So yeah, but got some work to do on that one. But yeah, always room for improvement.
I mean, could it be in Notebook 1 or Notebook 2?
There we go.
I don't.
So that's actually what that's what that orange one got from training at some point, and I actually filled it out with a bunch of notes. So every once in a while I do go back and look into it. So you almost sold me on the hardback notepad method again. So we'll see.
I just label it like this one's for work.
Very nice. There you go.
There's just something cathartic though about being able to physically go in and scratch out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That for sure.
Yeah,
It's
most
okay.
apps have a checklist and you can hit the check and it strikes through, and that's great. Looks clean. But there is something about just being able to scrawl off a task.
Right. When you get to manually strike out that you did that day. You can feel
and then just be dramatic at the
extra
end of the day.
accomplished. Yeah,
And
exactly.
then you just get to be dramatic. So you're sitting there and you're like, did that, scrap
So
that.
I do a bubble routine
Oh, well, look at that.
where it's like filled in bubbles.
Go Scantron style? I like it.
So that way I can still read what I did in the past. So I can always remember not only what was, like it helps me with like retrospectives, like what the heck did I do? And I can look and be like, I did all of that. And I can still like clearly read it. I totally agree with you though. The scratching is a very valid and pleasing thing. But to me, it would ruin the aesthetic of being able to read it because my handwriting is not great. So if I strike a line through it, it's going to be even worse. So I try to keep it as clean as possible with the bubbles.
I can get on board with the reference. It's prioritizing the ability to go back and reference it. So it makes sense. I like it. All right. Well, on that note, then I guess we'll call it episode 6.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. See you in the next one.
Cool.
See you, gentlemen.
Bye.